Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Firefighters Podcast, where we seek to develop, inspire, and motivate the world of the emergency services operator through a series of wide-ranging conversations. Now, before we go any further, just hit that rate, follow, or subscribe button on whatever platform you're listening to. It's a key performance indicator for us and helps us reach even more people. Now, here's what we've got for you today. Okay, here we go with another Firefighter Foundations podcast episode. Today we're talking about Flowpaths. Physics, the tactics, and the safety. This episode, for me, is really about one of the most powerful, sometimes misunderstood forces shaping every structure we enter and the way in which we interact with the fire that's hiding somewhere inside it. And this is the flow path. It's not about just hot air moving from here to there. It's about what the fire wants to do, what the wind wants to do, and what we decide to do. Getting these things right determines elements about whether we can control it or whether it just gets the best of us. So what is a flow path? So the term flow path might seem like a modern buzzword. You do hear it a lot on the podcast, but it's a concept of physics, and it's something firefighters have instinctively worked with for decades. In its simplest form, the flow path is the route that heat, air, fire, smoke take through a building as it moves from high to low pressure or from high to low temperature. It's shaped by ventilation openings, doors, windows, holes in the structure, and influenced by both wind and our tactical actions. A flow path effectively consists of two things: an inlet, where air enters and fuels the fire, and an outlet, where heat, smoke, and gases escape. We see this especially clearly at doorways and windows. You'll see a lot of photos on the presentations or the PowerPoints. If you just Google flow paths, you'll probably see a picture of a door or a window. Common example, smoke and flames blowing out the top of it and clean air being drawn in low down. Classic bidirectional flow path. The dividing line between these two directions is called the neutral plane. But here's the kicker. The direction and force of the flow path are shaped by three things: what the fire likes to do, which is hot gases rise and seek low pressure, i.e. escape points; what the wind likes to do, it's the external pressure that influences the internal flows; and what we do, we interact with the building. We open doors, windows, we go in for an initial attack. So understanding this interaction helps us recognize just how we easily can get caught out on the wrong side of it, especially if we underestimate the effects of modern fire loads and ventilation timing. So let's talk about the modern fire environment, and also we'll touch on smoke as a fuel. So let's talk about what's burning. So traditional home furnishings were made of solid wood, cotton, wool, things like that, and they burned slower and were much more predictable. Modern furnishings are synthetic, packed with petroleum-based materials that off-gas really highly flammable vapors during the pyrolysis process. These gases form what we now understand to be fuel-rich smoke. Smoke is high-energy fuel source. When you open a door or a window, i.e. creating ventilation, it introduces oxygen into the environment, potentially triggering combustion or rapid fire growth. That's why smoke must be treated not just as a visibility hazard, i.e. I can't see through smoke, but treated as a fuel source as well, especially in a ventilation-controlled fire. A firefighter operating in a flow path is essentially operating in the exhaust of the fire's breathing system, where the fuel-rich smoke is just waiting for that right mixture of air to ignite. So let's think about a practical scenario. If you're driving, don't close your eyes, but think about you arrive at a single story, so one floor, let's say it's a home, flames showing from the rear side window. So you run a line to the front door, you do a size up, and you open the door. And suddenly, you've given that fire a low pressure intake and created a flow path right through the house. The front door extends from floor to ceiling, making it highly efficient as an inlet. Hot smoke is then drawn to the door, pulling in that cool, oxygen-rich air along the floor and completing the combustion cycle. The fire now has a clear path to grow. If the fire was previously ventilation limited, your entry may be what re-energizes it. That's why door control matters. We don't really see that done very much in the UK necessarily. Yes, okay, a BA team will drop a knee, open, close. Do I think it's going to backdraft? Can I hear air whistling in? Is there a sharp inrush of air? Once the crew goes in, do we routinely have somebody out the door? Do we have a third member of the BA team doing door control? We don't. So instead of propping the door wide open, we might try partially closing it. A firefighter stationed at the door can manage the flow of air, only opening fully once the cooling has begun, i.e. when the firefighter is on the fire. So this might feel like a new practice, but really it's a return to the basics, certainly when we look around other areas of the world. So we know from UL studies, from NIST studies, try and provide some links for those below, the tragic case of reports such as there was a Chicago firefighter fatality. They did a great analysis of that in NIST, that many line of duty deaths are also directly linked to uncontrolled flow paths. In fact, Paul Grimwood, the now late Paul Grimwood, at least 15 historical Irish reports where firefighters were caught in or killed in a fatal flow path, often from entering without a full 360-degree size up or attacking it from the windward side. If you go back and listen to one of our debriefs, Fire in the Sky, that will give you a bit more of an insight onto windward. I'm not going to cover it again here. So, reading flow paths, external indicators. Smoke behaviour gives you clues. So ask yourself, is the smoke thick, black, and fast moving? In which case, it's likely fuel rich and underventilated. I'll say that again. If it's thick, black, and fast moving, it's likely fuel rich. It's got plenty of fuel, but is underventilated. Hasn't got enough air. Is the smoke pushing out high and air drawing in low? So is it pushing out high somewhere in the property and is air being drawn in low? Thirdly, are you entering from the windward side? That can drive the fire towards you. One of the favourite things I was told many, many years ago by one of my training staff instructors was wind on your back, good to attack. Wind on your front, don't be a silly sausage. Enter another word that you might think that may or may not rhyme in that little one. If the wind's behind you, it's blowing towards the building. Wind's on your back, it's good to attack. It's on your side. If the wind is on your front, but is blowing towards you, if you're approaching a fire and you've not done a full 360, you've not done a full size up, you could open that door and you're going to have to fight your way through the flow path. Okay, looking for the neutral plane. Observe smoke movement across openings using things like thermal imaging cameras to confirm what your eyes can't see. So are you working above or past the fire without realizing it? Where is the fire? That's a good thing you can use thermal imaging cameras and use flow paths for, because air is being drawn to the fire. That's why if you're nice and low, you're below that neutral plane, you can start to identify that flow path. It's a good way for you to see where you're going. You can see whether the heat is drawing or coming from left or right of a doorway, as an example. And are you sure you're not standing in a position where flame or smoke may reverse towards you if the conditions change? Are you traveling straight in that flow path? Next, controlling the flow path. So let's talk about a few tactical applications. Now we can use flow paths to our advantage. For example, isolating the fire. So doors, smoke curtains. You've had Dr. Michael Reich on the podcast before. Came up with the smoke curtain, smoke blockers. These things limit oxygen to the fire and protect escape routes. In the UK and across Europe, these tools are pretty standard now. You should have one of these on your truck. And especially in high-rise or multi-story buildings, it is very common to see them used. Controlling the inlet. So start this with doors closed. Use a branch externally to hit the fire from the outside, perhaps. You used to hear hitting it hard from the yard. Studies from UL and NIST have shown that this rapid cooling reduces the fire growth and flow velocity. So whilst your crew's getting ready, if you have got a fire that's ventilated out of the first floor and you can see flame, hit it from the yard. People have this thing about putting water in from the outside, like they're going to push the gases to down the stairwell and cook the BA team as they're coming up or something like that. When you get there, BA team are rigging up, they're getting the brief, they're just about to go through the door. Keep hitting it. Keep hitting it from the yard. When they open that door, you usually have a clear indicator which way the flow path is going anyway. If they open that door and the the smoke velocity and the fire increases coming out of that first floor, you know there's a clear path between the door and the first floor, because them opening that door has just fed that fire with some more oxygen. So you throw in anything inside that window, it's just going to keep coming out. All of the gases, all of the unburnt products of combustion, they're going to find the path of least resistance. They're going to come out the window. They're not going to go back down the stairwell and poach to the people. Now, as soon as you stop seeing flames from the yard, from the street, from standing outside, switch it off. And obviously have good communication with your crews. Cool the gases. Now, gas cooling is something we've spoken a lot about on the podcast. It is useful. It is an effective tool in the toolbox. It is not the utopia and the answer to everything. However, when you're on your way in and advancing towards a fire, if you've done a lot of practice with it, if you're effective, if you're staying low and moving quickly, pulsing in short bursts with your branch towards the ceiling whilst advancing is a good technique. If you've practiced it a lot, it is a good technique. It's one of John McDonough's, in my opinion, it's one of John McDonough's non-negotiables. Cool the gases, move with intention, stay low, pour water on the fire. Coordinating ventilation. This is crucial. So if you vent without speaking to anybody, if you vent without cooling first, you risk creating a new flow path and potentially placing crews in the exhaust, i.e. self-deploying from the outside, smashing a window in when crews are advancing down a hallway, reversing. There may have been little flow path in there at all. There might have been a small bidirectional from the door that they went in, i.e. air is going in low, gases are flowing out nice and gently, smoke is just percolating out of that door. You break a rear window, all of a sudden you've accelerated that flow path. You will get that flow coming straight at them. So you've got to synchronize any attack with ventilation. Flow path reversal. Avoid it, plan for it, anticipate wind shifts where possible or unexpected window failures. These reversals have killed firefighters when hot gases reverse the direction after structural or ventilation changes, i.e. after a window failed or after the wind changed direction. Again, go back to the Fire in the Sky episode, talked about areas of refuge, all to do with flow paths as well. Understand the difference between fuel controlled and ventilation controlled. You can often do this just by going onto YouTube and looking at a video of a house fire and having a discussion amongst you. So in an open space with enough oxygen, a fire is driven by the fuel load. Think about a bonfire. That is a fuel controlled fire. Okay, but in a small compartment, limited air, yes, there's limited fuel as well, but there's an abundance of fuel and there's not a great deal of air because it's a small compartment. It's limited by air. It makes it a ventilation control fire. And therefore, your tactical decisions carry a lot more weight because the amount to which that is going to grow or not is down to how much ventilation you give it and if you do it in a controlled manner. So be deliberate about your entry. According to the rules of engagement from, again, a few case studies on flow path research, consider deploying from the lowest fire involved floor and only after you've done a 360 and a size up, confirming that it's safe to entry. Now, most of the time in the UK, we go from the ground floor anyway, but we do have listeners from around the world, and sometimes they will choose to go in from a different floor if they're in a city or something like that. Don't always assume the front door is the best option. Might be the best designed way for people to enter the building, but dependent on wind direction and dependent on if any external windows have already failed, an external attack may be most preferred. And when you open that front door, what's going to happen to the people going in it? Have a think. Closing doors as you go. Simple thing to say, but it's often missed. I get it. You can trap your hose, you can trap your hose in it or whatever. But where possible, close doors as you go. Closing doors behind you limits the flow path creation. The fire is already existing in there. You want to suffocate it and you want to put it out. I mean, suffocating it is a method of putting out, but you want to get there, suffocate it, put it out. You want to steal its energy. You want to steal its air, suffocate it. You want to steal its energy with the energy thieves that you take in with you, i.e. the water. Flowpath awareness is an incident commander. Now, the incident commander plays a key role in managing flowpath, or should do. So he or she should not vent without a deliberate communicated decision. So entry points should be chosen in consideration of wind direction and fire location, i.e. you're going up to the front of a house. You can see the front window has failed and fire is bellowing out the front window. Have a look around the side. Has anything failed on the back? Which way is the wind direction going? Look at visual indicators. Is there a tree? Is there a flag? Is there any kind of visual indicator that tells you which way the wind direction is going? There's usually more than one entrance into most properties, i.e. front door, back door, patio door, whatever it might be. Think about, before you get all the hose off and start rolling everything out, which is the best side of this building to attack in consideration to the potential flow path that already exists in the building. And am I going to be sending my teams into all of that heat as it hits them before they get to the fire? Or is there an alternative approach? I don't think that's something that's thought about. Wasn't something I used to think about, that's for sure. So, putting it all together, here's like maybe a big picture thought. A lot of firefighters today operate in an environment full of fuel-rich smoke. There's a lot of fuel still in the smoke that surrounds us at these fires. These are fast-burning synthetic furnishings and lightweight constructions. When you add in wind, the thing we have very little control of in nature, and if you put poor coordination on top of that, and improper or sporadic or self-deployed venting, that flow path can and has the potential to again in the future become deadly. So when you go look on YouTube, or when you go and have a look at a picture of a fire you've been to, even when you get to work today, think if there was a fire in the firehouse today, at the fire station, which direction would I come at it from? How would I get into this building in consideration of the wind direction? Would I think to redeploy, going from the side, going from the back? Are we feeding or starving the fire? If I did have to go in through the front, would I think to use a smoke curtain? Would I think to get someone on door control? Are we controlling our ventilation or just letting the fire dictate it? Are we coordinating our attack with everyone on the incident ground? Or are we risking exposure to an uncontrolled flow path? Hopefully that's given you a bit of a better understanding. I'm sure there's many other people that have said it in many other different ways, and maybe you could go back and listen to them. Or tell them to send us something in, because there's lots of ways to go about it, lots of ways to say it, lots of ways to think about it. And I appreciate I do speak a little bit quickly. But if you understand the why behind a flow path, why is it doing what it's doing? Why does the entry point look that way? You're better prepared for the how. You're better prepared for not trying to just charge down a flow path when you don't have to, exposing yourself to all of that unnecessary heat. So try and be more of a thinking firefighter with the flow path. Certainly if you're going into a high-rise building, please be careful out there. Please think about these things. In a healthy and respectful manner, please question tactical actions, or at least highlight considerations for windward, leeward, flow paths, how we might deploy certain tactics to control them or factor for them. Fireground is changing, and so must our tactics, but flow paths are not new. Sometimes we need to remember more than we need to learn. So that's it for today, gang. Hope you found some of it useful. Stay sharp, stay low, watch the flow. Didn't mean for that to rhyme. And as always, I'll see you on the next one. Well, that's it for today, folks. Hope you took a lot away from that episode. We started the Firefighters Podcast to develop, inspire, connect, motivate, represent, and most importantly, celebrate the world of incredible emergency services operators and the wider sector through this series of wide ranging conversations. We really love creating this podcast and bringing it to so many people. Did you know you can also find these on YouTube? We do a lot of video podcasts now. You can head over to our YouTube page and follow, subscribe there. And as a final ask from us, whatever platform you're on, please rate the podcast. It really helps us as a key performance indicator to reach more and more people. I've been your host, Pete Wakefield. This has been the Firefighters Podcast. And wherever you are in the world, please stay safe, be happy, live with intention, and where possible, please remember and support your firefighters and first responders. I'll see you next time.